and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
On with the new flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
And I'm the pineapple on your pizza, Mike.
And I'm Colton.
And we have foreign correspondent yet again, Gill.
That's me. Hi.
I feel like we just have to stop introducing it as foreign correspondent.
I don't know.
Yeah, she's just
what
here.
What a warm welcome.
What a warm welcome.
It's just me.
Jeez, it's just Gill.
The cockroach that won't leave.
And we are back for another episode. Let's get started with what media we have been consuming, what you've been watching, what you've been listening to, what you've been reading, all that good stuff. Colton, you were MIA last episode, so why don't you let us know what you've been up to?
Honestly, in the last week, I haven't watched anything at all because I've just been slowly making my way through God of War Ragnarok and working nonstop. But since my last appearance, the biggest thing I've seen was definitely Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which I thought was completely mediocre. It's overlong and it's very one note in the same way like a cancer movie or a dog movie is one note. Just
oh my God.
Inherently sad. You know, it's just like you go and watch one of these dog movies and you're like, these sick bastards are going to kill the dog by the end. And it's like, most people are sobbing at the end, right? No joke, I think there's probably 15 minutes of people crying in this movie, and 10 minutes of it's probably in slow motion, so it just feels doubly long. Outside of that, I just think it's also very messy. It constantly struggles to find any narrative momentum or a clear protagonist. And even when it finally does find one in Letitia Wright's Shuri, she's just so boring to watch that it doesn't really add anything to the movie. Not to mention, she's also a crazy anti-vaxxer in real life and halted the movie's production for months because she refused to wear a mask or get vaccinated. So that was a little bit hard for me to kind of stomach watching this scientific genius that she was playing in this movie, and obviously it just fell flat to me. So that being said, it wasn't all negative. I did enjoy the score outside of some of the licensed music. That felt a little bit weird compared to the off-kilter score that was used for most of it. And I thought Angela Bassett was very good. And I liked a lot of what Namor was doing, which was pretty impressive considering he's a villain that has wings on his feet. And I very much did not know that about the character. And there's just a close-up of fleshy wings on this dude's feet. And I was like, what the hell am I watching? So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. But it's definitely not one of my favorite things from the MCU, but I mean, that's the way it's been for years now. So I know, Rowan, I know you also saw Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I just got out an hour or two ago of it. I was pretty much the same. Marvel just hasn't been doing it here the last couple of years. Chadwick is just a big hole that I was all for not recasting Black Panther, and I think I came out of this being we need to just recast Black Panther ASAP. But I was the same. I thought the Namor stuff was the best part of it. I enjoy Namor in the comics, which this is, obviously a huge departure from what he is in the comics. I thought it was still good, though. It was kind of cool. In the comic books, the wings are on his boots. And
okay.
And he wears, all leather. And he's also, a Tony Stark asshole. So...
Okay.
Those are kind of things that I like about the character, but I thought this was a take that I could definitely get down with.
Was his namesake the same in the comics as it was in this movie? Because that was an incredibly cheesy line.
No, so...
My name is Namor because it means no love or some shit. It's awful.
Yeah, no, I can't remember what it is in the comics, but I do know I read a couple articles when it was coming out that, like, all of that, they changed all of that for the movie. So pretty much other than the name Namor and the general gists of, you know, being the Aquaman of Marvel, like, everything else was changed for the movie.
Gotcha.
Was that all you saw?
No. On the other end of the scale, I saw All Quiet on the Western Front, which is an excellent World War I movie told from the German perspective. It's yet another adaptation of the book that many of us probably had to read in high school English classes, but considering it's been a while since I've been in high school, I basically didn't remember any of it. So I was like completely engrossed the entire time. It has impeccable production design in general, but for a Netflix production, it's even more impressive because I just find a lot of Netflix stuff generally looks samey. Like, I don't know if they use the same cameras or the same color grading or the same visual effects houses, but this one here, like, it actually looked like a real movie to me, which, I don't know, it seems so mean to say, but it looked really good. Like, but what I probably liked most about it was that it didn't, like, glorify or valorize war at all. Instead, it kind of portrayed World War I as probably, like, what it most likely was, you know, a horrific event in which millions of 18-year-olds murdered each other in order to advance from, like, one rat-infested hole to the next. So, yeah, I was pretty shocked by it. I thought it was pretty excellent, and honestly, it might be more of a horror movie than some of Mike's picks on the show. So,
I was waiting for that, shady bitch.
Love it.
I have watched some other things, but I won't get into all of them, but I do have to come to bat for Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities because Rowan disrespectfully disparaged it on the last podcast, and I wasn't there to defend it. And as far as I know, he's only seen an episode or two of it.
Yeah, I've only seen 2 episodes.
Yeah, so I think it's a pretty damn strong anthology series. I haven't seen the entire thing either, but it's another Netflix production that feels like it has some money behind it, likely because of Del Toro's involvement. You know, just his name probably brings more money to the project. And I really like it as a television anthology format to kind of showcase up-and-coming and even more established horror directors.
Yeah.
I will say that the first episode, Lot 36, is probably the weakest that I've seen. But the rest of what I've seen, like, I thought it has been consistently great. I mean, even the second one that you've seen, I thought was just like a fun, zany, like...
I did like that one better, so...
Yeah, that was just like a fun episode. But yeah, you know, if you're listening to this, you've probably already checked out Cabinet of Curiosities if you're interested in doing so. But if you haven't, maybe start on episode 2 or 3 and give it a shot. But yeah, anyways, I've taken up enough time. Gill, what have you been watching / consuming?
For watching, I started watching The White Lotus on HBO.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Do you guys know about it?
I've seen a couple
I'm
episodes.
desperate to watch it.
It's great.
I love it so much because at the beginning you get like this unsettling feeling because you see like a body in a box, and then you spend the rest of the series trying to figure out what events happen at this nice little Hawaiian resort that lead to, and everyone is just so crazy. It's a really nice look at political beliefs on extremes on either side. Like you have all these white people who are rich and they're coming to this resort in Hawaii, and then you have the Hawaiians who are just like living paycheck to paycheck underneath all these white people. And then you have people who like pretend to be woke, performative activism. So you have, you know, two sides of it, and it's just really interesting to watch. And I love Jennifer Coolidge.
Queen.
So yeah, so it's really good so far. I'm not done yet because I also started reading a new book yesterday. I went to Barnes & Noble and I got this series that's been blown up on TikTok called A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Sarah J. Maas.
Yeah, it's basically fairy porn.
I've never heard anybody describe it like that, but that's totally accurate.
So yeah, that's kind of what I'm into. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. So that's what I'm reading. What about you, Mike?
Okay, Have not been consuming as much as I would like because I've been grinding battle passes on all my video games. But, so I've been watching a lot of Real Housewives of Potomac still because I'm really just trying to, like, chew through that. And honestly, I got together with a couple of my close friends and we were drinking and watching, like, shitty made-for-TV movies on Tubi from, like, the 80s and 90s. And I don't even remember what they are because we were getting very drunk. And I was like, I forgot to log them on Letterboxd, but I don't remember barely what they were. And now I don't remember what they were. So I watched a bunch of shitty TV movies. They were fun. I mean, we were, like, laughing at them, but what were they? I don't remember. Anyway, yes, that's really all I've been doing. I also just started a new book called No Longer Human. I just bought it the other day. I've been meaning to read it for years. I think Dazai it's a Japanese author. It's like this like cult classic, like existential Japanese novel from like the 50s, I want to say. You know, kind of like, I guess, like the Japanese version of a like Camus, you know. But anyway, so hopefully that's going to be really good. And that's it. That's all I got. It's nothing. What you got, boy?
I'm gonna try to keep it low so Colton doesn't mock me.
When I was listening to last week's episode, I swear Rowan went on for 40 minutes of what he was watching.
So I watched, I think I raved to everyone on the cast about it after I watched it. So I watched Coherence for the first time, and like loved it, really loved it. And I reached out, I was talking to like Steven from Every Horror Movie on Netflix, and he was like, oh my God, you never saw that? Like, I forgot about it. I love that movie, and I'm trying to make it happen again. Yeah, just really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite things I've watched this year, even though it's on a movie from this year. Just like, I can't believe I missed it. Everything I like in a movie, like horror, sci-fi, just, yeah. Loved it. I watched the Belko Experiment. I've heard lots of people talk about it, and I had just never seen it, so I checked it out, and it was all right. It's just, you know, like people locked in an office building and told they have to kill each other if they want to leave.
See, that literally sounds like my favorite movie.
I was gonna say, it seems like a Rowan movie because I've heard it's very gory, but maybe it's just not gory enough for you. I don't know.
I found it really wasn't that gory, and it was just kind of a letdown to me. Like, you're in an office building, and it's kind of a comedy, so I was like, oh, like it's gonna be funny deaths with like staplers, but it's not. It's just like, you know, some guy's got a gun and he's shooting people. Like, it was just like a half-baked idea I kind of found. I finally finished the 101 Scariest Horror Movie Moments of All Time on Shudder. And I really enjoyed that. So my plan is next up, I'm going to start the queer horror documentary, which I'm super excited to get into. But yeah, this was good. If you like those kind of list kind of documentaries that Shudder does, then it's worth your time. Go into it. I always warn people, like a couple of people that started watching it from my recommendation, you got to kind of be okay with spoilers, just because,
of course,
they're talking about iconic scary scenes, so it's usually kind of like climaxes of horror movies.
It's like, if you don't know how Psycho ends, then
yeah,
you're in trouble.
So just skip the ones that you haven't seen, and yeah. And I'm not gonna name them all, so I went down a rabbit hole of Steven Seagal straight to video. Movies on Tubi. I watched a lot of them. They're not good. I mean, they're funny. They're super funny to watch in the middle of the night, but they're not good whatsoever. I rewatched some George Carlin stand-up. I've been killing Tubi lately. I love George Carlin. Yeah. And, I've been going backwards. So I started with the last one he did before he died, and I plan on just going back and watching all of them to his first special. And then, only 2 more. Everyone's like, geez, we normally have a whole list. So I watched Buried, or rewatched Buried. I've seen it before, and just as good as the first time I watched that movie. That movie fucks me up more than any horror movie we have ever reviewed on here, because I am super claustrophobic, and
Okay, yeah.
that movie just like... So the story is, I watched it the other night and I had ate an edible, and I was like laying in bed, watched it on my iPad, and I kept shutting it off and starting a different movie because I'm like, I'm getting way too much anxiety. Like, it's just like freaking me out. It's pitch black in my room, and I'm just like, I'm creeped out. But then I just kept being like, oh, suck it up, Ro, and you did an edible, just suck it up. And then
Funny.
Yeah, I finished it. It's good. I love it. And then I finally watched Do Revenge, which has been on my list since it came out, and I liked it.
Oh, is that why you liked my review of it on Letterboxd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was super excited. I remember when the trailer came out, and I'm always looking for a good, like, needle drop high school movie.
Oh, that was Needle Drop the fucking movie.
Yeah, that's pretty much the best part of it. But yeah, it was pretty good. It had I don't remember their names. It's got the woman that plays Veronica.
Maya Hawke and Camilla Mendes. Like, how dare you?
Yeah, there you go. So if you like them, like I'm a big Riverdale guy, so I enjoy her. And yeah, I thought it
the
was
cast was...
Yeah, the cast was amazing. I thought it was pretty good. I don't know if it's like going down history as like one of the top high school movies, but it was all right. It's pretty good.
Oh, but what did you think about the Sophie Turner scene where she freaks out?
Yeah, I did like that.
I don't do cocaine. I don't even know what it looks like.
Yeah, I did like that.
That is like burned into my brain forever.
So that was Sophie Turner.
That was Sophie Turner.
Okay,
yeah.
I was like, is that Sophie Turner? It kind of looks like her. And I was like,
it's like they just used her for like 2 minutes the whole movie.
Yeah, that makes that scene even better now that I know for sure it was her. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was everything.
I'll send you the video just so you can rewatch it knowing that.
Perfect. Yeah. But yeah, that was everything I watched. So yeah, let's get into the film. It was Colton's pick, Ravenous. Let's get into the trailer. We'll come back with bio and talk about our first experiences.
In the mountains of California,
man eats the flesh of another.
In this secluded town,
he steals that man's strength.
One man is about to discover
He was licking me!
the legend is real.
We need others. You for one.
I'm gonna kill him.
Ravenous.
Isn't this civilized?
Rated R.
Upon receiving reports of missing persons at a remote army outpost on the western frontier, Captain John Boyd investigates. After arriving at his new post, Boyd and his regiment aid a wounded frontiersman, Calhoun, who recounts a horrifying tale of a wagon train murdered by its supposed guide, a vicious U.S. Army colonel by the name of Colonel Ives. Fearing the worst, the regiment heads out into the wilderness to verify Calhoun's gruesome claims and bring the colonel's sins to light.
So, our first experiences, is this our first time seeing this film? Or, after we were a child and all we did with our lives was play the Oregon Trail game, we just descended into a love of movies of old time, and Ravenous was just our favorite. Yeah, is this your first time? Colton, this was your pick. Why don't you let us know about your experience?
This was my first time seeing it, and this has been one that I've had on my radar for like 5 or 6 years now. The first screenplay I ever wrote that was like a feature length was a Wendigo story set in Labrador, like a caribou hunting trip thing. So at the time, I was kind of just searching for popular Wendigo media and kind of making sure to avoid those movies because I didn't want to accidentally steal any plot points or steal any scenes or anything like that. So this was one that I read like a little blurb of it, and I was like, okay, this is actually pretty similar, I think, to what I'm writing, so I'll definitely avoid this one. So yeah, it's just been on my radar for ages, and that project is like long in the past, so I was kind of like, yeah, maybe it's a good one to pick. And it has pretty positive reviews on Letterboxd and whatnot, so I was like, yeah, it's a good one for the show. So yeah, this is the first time I've seen it. What about you, Rowan?
Yeah, so this wasn't on my radar. I had never even heard. I shouldn't say I'd never heard of it. I think there's like a couple podcasts I listen to that have done this, but I just kind of skipped by it, not knowing what it was. And you brought it up, so when you said it as your pick, I immediately looked. It had a Scream Factory Blu-ray, so you know I was sold then. I was like, well, I better buy this Scream Factory Blu-ray. And so it's been sitting on my shelf for months, just waiting for the moment for me to watch it. So this was my very first time. How about you, Mike?
I saw it years and years ago. I saw it like probably within a couple of years of it coming out. I don't remember how. Maybe somebody I know had like a DVD of it or something, and we just like decided to watch it one night after smoking up. But like, yeah, I remember being like, holy shit, I was not expecting anything out of this movie, because like okay, listen, it's a period piece, and I'm generally not a fan of period pieces of any kind. So I was like, oh yeah, okay, here, period piece, fucking dudes out in the woods, like this is. And anyway, and then obviously, like, you know, by the time the half point kicks in, I'm like, okay, I'm fucking into this, and I quite enjoyed my first viewing of it. So it was one of those, and I went and bought the DVD of it at like Walmart or whatever with like nothing on it. But, you know, I watched it a couple times over the years, but it's been a really long time. And so as soon as like it was brought up, like, oh yeah, let's do Ravenous, I was really excited to watch it again, because it was one of those that I really enjoyed when I was young, but I was like, am I gonna enjoy it in the same way now?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really cool to revisit it. So thanks, Colton, for, you know, putting that back on the radar. What about you, Jill?
No problem.
Once again, it is a first time for me. Never heard of it. Yeah. I'm just trying to get this ball rolling. Let's go.
Simple and straight to the point. Well, we know what it is now. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of things. And we know where we're starting. Our favorite kill, favorite scene. Jill, this was the first time for you. What was your favorite scene and or favorite kill?
Okay. So mine are pretty early on in the movie. So my favorite scene is when Calhoun kills two of the party and he starts chasing Toffler. And it's the funniest shit I've ever seen. It is like such a shit show. And then they have this really funny music in the background. Yeah. And oh my God, it was so chaotic. I loved it. I was just laughing so hard. And they're just like screaming. It was just chef's kiss. Did you say favorite death as well?
Favorite scene / favorite kill. You've done this enough.
Yeah, sorry.
Jeez.
Sorry. Just want to make it short. All right, so my favorite kill, I guess, is when Reich rolls off the cliff. Like, he doesn't die right then and there, because he, got to make it dramatic. But there's one point he just kind of, like, rolls off the cliff, and then eventually Boyd kills him. But I also thought that was really funny. And it was really close to the moment where, like, they were chasing each other. So, like, it was just really funny for me. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, you kind of stole mine.
Sorry.
Is it Guy Pearce that falls down the hill for like 17 minutes and then lands at the bottom? Yeah. So that's my favorite scene. It's when Guy Pearce falls down a hill for 17 minutes straight and lands next to a bloody and smiling Neil McDonough. This movie, like, my expectations for this movie was like incredibly skewed. Just, I thought this was going to be like a really serious, like, Western, like, horror movie, like, and then it was almost like immediately in the movie, it was just super cheesy with the title sequence and all the like over grain on the screen and whatnot, that I just had a really hard time vibing with this thing at all. So that one scene where he's falling for so long, I just it was like almost like a cathartic release that I just like cracked up laughing at it. And like, once again, I don't know if that was what I was supposed to feel in that moment, but I don't know. I just got a kick out of that.
It is now. Who cares?
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
I had a few, but like, honestly, I feel like because this movie has such a like bizarre tone and vibe that sort of shifts all the time. And again, like when they do that like smash cut of like Ravenous, and it's got that like quirky ass fucking like gorillas acoustic, you know, like it's like, oh, okay, this is probably gonna be silly, but like, honestly, I just remember, like, the first time I was watching it, I was really, like, you know, like I said, like, skeptical. And the moment, I vividly remember the moment that broke my skepticism when I first watched it all those years ago was, you know, when he goes, and it's so fucking stupid, it's so basic, but I can't help it. It's like, when he goes down into the, like, hole in the cave and sees all the fucking skeletons and shit, that, like, shit actually... Like, I had nightmares that night about, like, those, like, skeletons hanging down and, like, oh my god, and then you, like, realize what actually happened, and it's like, you know, it's just like, anyway, and I got those same feelings watching it again, because it had been so long, I kind of, like, forgot a lot of it, but I was like, oh my god, I remember being, like, totally shocked by this the first time I saw it, and I thought that was a really good, like, after the kind of weird, like, oh, it's thrillery, and oh, there's, like, kind of, it's almost slapstick, but, like, that moment was just, like, terror. Gore. The cannibalism, like, really hit home, because when he's describing it, you see it, it's kind of, like, choppy, you know, no pun intended. You know, and you don't really get the, like, full effect of it, but when you go down there and you see that, it's like, fuck, this is, like, methodical consumption of human beings, right? So it's, like, the first moment where I'm like, holy shit, like... This is wild. So that would be my take on it. What about you?
Mine was also Guy Pearce or Boyd rolling down the hill. I had noted that. I liked it too because
it's such a good scene.
It was so funny, and there was definitely shots they just kept reusing. And I'm like, you just showed the scene of him rolling, and then they just replay it. And I was just... I was dying every time they started showing more and more of it. And my favorite, I didn't really have a favorite kill whatsoever, which is kind of weird for this one. But mine is more of I don't want to say spooky because it wasn't spooky, but it is the scene Mike's talking about where they go down into the hole. And
it's a claustrophobia.
Yeah, in the skeletons, and they're like slimy and stuff. And it just really kind of gave me the vibe of like an older horror movie, like maybe something from like the 70s or 60s.
Yeah, like a Hammer horror.
Yeah, like real Hammer horror where like it doesn't necessarily look real. Yeah, it's just like kind of good old fashioned fun, creepy. And I just really enjoyed that. Like I said, unfortunately, I don't have a favorite kill. I kind of thought all the kills were just kind of whatever in this.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I just watched The Descent not too long ago. So watching that cave scene was like extra scary for me. It was, like,
and it's the same thing. It's a descent into a cave, and it's visceral and wet and gooey. Yeah.
It's nasty.
For sure. It's so funny because I was thinking that. I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to like draw too many connections to other shit, but like The Descent is one of my favorite movies, so like I think that's why I love that scene so much, because it kind of always reminds me of that. Yeah.
Nice.
I didn't get that comparison at all when I watched it.
Well, you know
sorry,
what?
guys.
Maybe you need to like,
You're not smart enough. That's why.
I know.
Not on the wavelength as me and Mike.
Bro, broaden your references, okay?
Okay, I'm sorry, guys.
Open your mind.
So before you guys talk about anything, I gotta bring up the music.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. I was wondering what Colton was gonna say about it. So totally. I still don't know what I think about it. I'm really torn on what I think about this movie. Because I feel like I said, I knew nothing. I didn't know any of the actors that were in this. I made sure just to go in blind. So when the music starts playing, like, I'm like, this is weird because it's like this loop over and over again.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's kind of like a comedy music loop, but also like, you know, this Oregon Trail, like old style with like a little
like banjo.
Strumming,
yeah,
the plucking.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I think it's the weirdest music I've ever heard. Like,
yeah, it tracks though. Yeah,
I'm not the only one that thought
like,
that.
Like the movie itself, that's what I want to know. Like, is it supposed to be comedic or like is just campy or like what is it? Because this is one of those movies where I kind of don't understand what I'm supposed to think of it. Like when I was watching it, I was so off put by just even the title sequence that I was like, what did I choose? Like once again, I had no idea what I was choosing outside of that. It's a Wendigo movie, you know? And I got in here and I got the music in this movie sucks in all caps.
Oh my God. I was like
barnyard chase sequence, LOL, with this plucking banjo and whatnot. What is going on? Right? Like I'm just like so
good,
confused.
It was so fucking funny.
I was like, I would download this soundtrack. You know who it is though? It's the guy from Blur and Gorillaz did the music, Damon Albarn.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because Robert Carlyle recommended him apparently.
Okay.
I don't know if like he had some connection with like some of the movies that they did in the UK or whatever.
That is so niche. I gotta look that up.
Yeah, so that's why, and I had not remembered like the music. You know me, usually like the first thing I make a note about is the music, and I'll like I might not remember anything about a movie, but I'll remember the music. But I forgot how fucking weird the music was in this, and I also forgot that he did it. And then as soon as I saw like when the credits came up and it was like music, Damon Albarn, I was like, oh my God, now I remember thinking the music was really weird.
He did do it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's even more bizarre.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it might be a love it or hate it sort of thing because I saw people saying that literally this is like one of the best horror like soundtracks of all time, and like the score and whatnot on like Letterboxd or like if you search up the movie, and I was just like actually shocked. I was like, did we watch a different movie? Like this is just like banjos and whatnot. And it wasn't like creepy. It was just weird. Like
no, it was very bizarre. Almost. You're right.
Yeah,
but like it totally. But when you it really does affect how you perceive the movie, and it really like steers the tone of the movie, you know what I mean? Like if you took that score out and put like the It Follows score or something on it, it would like totally just radically change my opinion of the movie. I think it's so weird. It's so weird that
I think I would prefer if you just had a more traditional horror movie score to it, I guess, but clearly they went in a different direction with it. It was just so weird to me. Like once again, like you've mentioned before on the podcast, it's like, oh Colton, well your expectations like got in the way of you enjoying this movie. This is like one where 100% I will admit that I was like my expectations were completely different, and then I walk into this weird ass like cheesy goofy campy movie and I was just like, oh God, this is not my vibe at all. Like this would never be something I would pick if I already watched it beforehand. Yeah.
It's so weird because I thought you had seen it and you were really into it and that's why you picked it. Yeah.
No, I've never seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, from my understanding, it is supposed to be campy and a comedy, which, like you said, Colton, like I was the same way because I was like, I thought it was like just a straight up horror movie. So it like really threw me off that I was like, because I was like, wait a second, this is definitely like comedy-esque music. And I was like, do they just like not know that? Or like, it just really threw me off at the beginning, which I think then threw me off the entire movie. Because even though it's a comedy, like, it's not like a laugh out loud comedy, really.
Yeah, that's kind of my issue with camp a lot of the time. I can't discern if it's like actually all intentional or if they kind of made a choice in the editing process or like after the fact. It's like, oh, it didn't really turn out the way we wanted. Let's just kind of lean into it and like make cheesier choices to kind of basically be like, oh, it's campy now. And like when I was watching this, it was similar. I was like, I'm not really sure why it went this way. I truly don't know. It's like I said, it was just bizarre. I was just shocked by it. Like when he was licking me when that happens, like, oh, it's just weird. It's just a weird movie.
It was a really weird moment. And then you look at him and he's like, and he has blood over his lips. And I found that character to be very unsettling, like looking. And That guy, the actor kind of looks like a mix between, I want to say Tom York and David Tennant. Like, he looks super British, but like,
yeah.
And then like from Jessica Jones, when you have David Tennant being like a villain, I don't know, I really got that in his eyes, Colquhoun's eyes. So like every time I looked at him, I was like, man, this guy is so creepy. He's the creepiest part of this whole thing, and it's just him.
It's like that British Coke eyes, like.
Oh God.
I fucking love Robert Carlyle.
Yeah, he's so good though. He's really
he is really good in this. I'll give it that. Yeah, and I didn't see the twist coming. Like it's just dumb. Like, you know, I was like, oh, when he actually comes back to the camp and he's all dressed up in his uniform and all that, I was like, oh, okay, that's a neat direction to go in this. Like that was fun. You know,
I did like the look they gave him, like towards the end where he had like the blood cross on his head and stuff. Like, I felt out of all the cast, he just really was like all in, more so than anyone else. Maybe other than David Arquette just being a stoner for.
Yeah, I was gonna say David Arquette was like, I don't even think he knew what movie he was in.
Yeah, he's so weird in this movie. Like, I think he was just he just read his parts of the script and that was it. Mm-hmm.
To me, that was another, like the music, that was another kind of role in the way he played the character that I was like, okay, like obviously they're trying to go for some sort of comedy so that it's funny that you have, you know, this like stoner character that would be in a modern movie, but it's in, you know, this period piece. But I just like, I don't.
They're like, no peyote. Like,
and I just, to me, that his character's really was kind of my biggest gripes with the movie. Like, I didn't really see the point of his character. Like, I get how they were trying to like contrast it from, like I said, the period piece to like a comedy of now, but like, I just thought his role was so stupid and like they didn't really need it. It was almost just like, hey, we can get David Arquette in our movie. Like, let's give him like this minor role that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And he also played like he's kind of an idiot too. I'm like, does this guy only play idiots in horror movies? Like, I mean, he's a slightly dumber version of Officer Dewey.
Yeah, it's clearly like they just Scream was out like a couple of years before this, right? Like, Scream was like 96, 97. It is just kind of like, oh yeah, let's just bring in that guy. It's just like a recognizable face. And I mean, there's loads of recognizable faces in this movie. When I was watching it, like most of the cast, I was like, oh damn, I know these people. Like I've seen them around.
Yeah.
And once again, it just makes me even more and more confused about like the movie that they all signed on to. It's just, yeah.
I was praising you, Colton, once I saw that Jeffrey Jones was in this. I'm a massive Jeffrey Jones fan, as everyone should be.
As I scroll through, you know,
I'm like, listen,
Jeffrey Jones
I was like, are you a Jeffrey Jones fan or a Ferris Bueller fan? Like,
well, Beetlejuice.
Like, really?
Beetlejuice.
Oh, Beetlejuice too. That's right. I always forget he's in that. I'm always just like Ferris Bueller right after that.
He's fantastic in Beetlejuice. I mean, he's in.
I will say,
stuff.
I've definitely watched. When I was like 13, I was obsessed with John Hughes movies, so I've definitely seen Ferris Bueller more than I've seen Beetlejuice. I've also seen Beetlejuice 100 times, but like it's one of those movies that I haven't watched like in a million years.
To me, Jeffrey Jones will always be the guy from Beetlejuice, and also a childhood favorite of mine was Stay Tuned.
Oh yeah,
John Ritter, where he plays like Satan in that one, and Jeffrey Jones. I just love Jeffrey Jones. And the interview I saw with Jeffrey Jones about Ravenous, I think out of anyone, he was like, he was all about this movie, that he thought this was like,
oh really?
He knew it was going to be like a cult classic. I did kind of wonder though about the tones of it and everything that. I wonder if that had anything to do. I know like they fired the director 3 weeks into it.
Okay.
So it was a totally different director. And they kept all those shots. I wasn't smart enough to like write down who the director was. It was some French director. But basically, like, you know, like most of these guys, why they get fired. You know, he felt the studio was interfering and all that kind of stuff. But like, I thought maybe the tone difference was there. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe he was trying to make a complete comedy or maybe a complete serious movie, and then it just didn't work out. I just thought the tonal shifts were like kind of bizarre, and
that's a good explanation for it. It's like very uneven, and they've kind of like patched it together, but it also kind of works. So
yeah, well, and I was gonna say, like, and I can see like around this movie when I look at, you know, like Letterboxd reviews or just reviews in general, and people talk about it, like cult classic is like kind of what people talk about this movie now. It's this cult movie, and to me, I'm like, I could kind of get it, because I was like, to me, this felt like a trauma movie. Like this felt like a Toxic Avenger, like something that's low budget. It doesn't really make any sense. Like, it's hard to, is it a horror movie? Is it a comedy? It's just like this crazy genre. Like, to me, I was like, this could have easily been released as like 80s, early 90s trauma movie.
But the thing is, it's not trauma, right? Like, it's like a $12 million movie, right? Like, it's a Western. Like, they're also going for like an epic and all this shit in it, right? It's just, if it was a trauma movie, I can excuse like some of the weird tonal choices or some of the ways like the narrative goes. But once again, it's just, this wasn't really for me, I don't think. One note I got made is just like the story of the survival, you know, the wagon incident. Like when Calhoun's talking about it, it's very much just like a ripoff of Jaws. Like the story. Like when I was watching it, I was just like, damn, I saw this in Jaws, like done better in Jaws. Like, I don't know, like that was like what, 30 years or 20 years before this movie. So it was just like, when I was listening to him kind of recount it, I was like, yeah, it's like a harrowing story, but once again, Jaws did it better. So
I will say I thought they did a good job at the beginning of the movie, where like Guy Pearce is like freaking out at the dinner table and they're eating like the
with the meat and the blood.
With the meat and the blood. I was like, I thought they did a pretty good job with that. And
the opening scene was wonderful. And the flashbacks, like, I thought that whole segment was like just amazing. Like the close-ups of the food and the sounds.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little offended in the beginning as a vegetarian. I was like, God damn it, Colton, I'm gonna throw up.
But see, like, I kind of thought, because it had been so many years since I saw it, I was like, wait, did I just watch it too young and not realize? I was like, is this a commentary on meat eating? Like, is that what this is?
No,
I actually wrote a note about that. It is a concept of morality. You know, they are trying to, when he's listing all the things that he did wrong when the people first take him in, he talks about how they first eat the oxen, which is probably like the most moral animal to eat, and then the horses, and that's like a little taboo, you know, and then the dog, which is even more taboo, and then humans. So it like goes down this line of morality, but like, where do we draw the line? And I love bringing that up to people who eat meat, just to be a dick, because it's funny. But like, how desperate do we have to be to resort to cannibalism? Like, where do you draw that line? I would kill myself like immediately. I could never, like, it's just gross to me. I would die. But yeah, morality.
It just sounds like a Thursday night to me, but
That's kind of the issue in a lot of these stories too. Like, I don't know, in Antlers, let's say, like a more recent Wendigo story, it's always difficult to find like a convincing way to make people like turn to consuming meat, human flesh. Like the cannibalism aspect of a lot of these Wendigo stories is so hard to make it like fit in like a movie timeline. So that's why in this one it's almost just like all the cannibalism and stuff happened off screen and it was just explained, and like we already have a Wendigo or a person possessed by the spirit of a Wendigo in the movie. That once again, I just thought the movie was going to be a little bit different. I was expecting like a transformation. I was expecting like the more you know, I guess it's the more recent portrayals of Wendigo. It's like usually there's like this subtle, emaciated form, you know, there's like a change, right? Like a physical change in the person, where this is just like a spirit, like a malevolent spirit, you know.
Well, I mean, they did give Guy Pearce, like, a little bit of a little dust of, like, pale makeup. and they made his hair a bit stringy. That was sort of it. But, like, I thought it was so interesting because, you know, watching it this time was actually very different because I was, like, literally watching it, and right from the get-go, I was like, how did I not see that this is just... Because at first I was like, I mean, I get it because I just assumed they were using the, like, Donner Party as a, like... really good template of how do you force people like you were saying, how do you like rig it so that people have to eat people, and that's a really good setup because it's historical and it's, you know, something that, you know, people kind of like learn in school or whatever, and it's, you know, kind of like if you're thinking about historical North American cannibalism, that's like the apex, right? But then I was like, oh, okay, so that's why they made it a period piece. And then I was like, you know what? It's actually, I see what they're trying to do. They're actually kind of like turning it into like a, you know, metaphor for like Western expansion. And they really lean into that for a little bit. And then obviously at the end, you gotta go, oh, wait, but this is also a horror movie. So we need to like forget about that. And throw that out the window and just go into like two people like wailing on each other with everything they find in a barn.
That's a good point. They also bring up the like American ideology of consuming as much as you can.
Yeah.
Because it's all about consumption. And like you said, it's about the expansion of the West with gold, and then they make that plan to get all the people who are coming over for the gold rush, and then like when they intercept them, they're gonna get them. And the other thing I noticed is that like they kind of allude to this theme that there's no coming back from the end of cannibalism. And at the beginning of the movie, somebody says the interesting thing about escape is that you might end up somewhere worse. So there's no escape whatsoever. There's no coming back from it. It's this like never-ending cycle, and the only person who breaks that cycle is Boyd when he dies in that bear trap, which was an amazing scene, by the way. That's one of my favorite scenes. Yeah. And then the guy at the end eats the stew, and the cycle continues. So again, even though that he kills himself to kind of stop it, someone is still going to eat the stew, and it's going to continue.
Yeah, you can make that ultimate sacrifice of yourself, but, you know, that's going to stop one like thread of it, but there's already other threads like being pulled off, right? So also I just have to say that like that type of ending just drives me nuts. But I'll get into that later.
Yeah.
For me, I was just so off-put by the size of the bear trap that I was like wondering like what traps were these made for? Is this an elephant trap? Like, I don't know. It was just like massive, like how big this thing was, that I was just
you
like...
could fit 2 human bodies in it and still have room to spare.
So once again, it was another thing for me that just didn't work because it was like this comically large bear trap that I was like, okay, it's a cute idea, but it makes no sense. Like most of the time in movies, a bear trap can like ensnare someone's like ankle, right? Like, not like 2
Well, because you're not supposed
completely.
to be able to see it, right?
Yeah, like that's
you
the
won't
thing.
See
you got
a bear
this...
trap, you step in it,
Yeah, like that. Like a child would step in this one and just be completely decapitated, right? Like the the lower half of his body would be separated, right? It's
like a Charlie Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy bear trap.
Once again, I think it's for elephants. I don't know about too many elephants in the American frontier, you know?
Well, and I didn't understand like how Calhoun, like how he died in it, because I was like, I like I get that it closed on Boyd, but I was like, Calhoun was laying on it and he was fine. Like there was nothing snaring him from underneath. And then when it shuts...
No, they were like... Yeah, I think they were like on top of each other, right? So I think they both got pinned, right?
Yeah, each one is getting eaten by the teeth. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't look like it, though, in the movie.
Well, yes, because he had to push him down on the pressure plate, which is in the middle. And I get that, but like, that's just one of those like... Big. It's a quibble, right? Like
when it snapped, I was like, oh yeah, it like goes through Boyd, but I was like, he's kind of covered, isn't he? Like... Boyd's on top of him. He should be good. But, I mean...
but a bear trap is a circle, so each side has the teeth on it, right? So the person on the bottom is going to get the pressure.
Oh my god, this is a commentary on homosexuality. Bear trap?
Okay, no, but listen. Okay. My last note is that scene, I drew an arrow from it, because I said, are they going to kiss?
Oh.
Could have used more homoeroticism.
It was the kiss of death, technically.
Yeah. Well, because they were looking at each other. I'm telling you right now, in that fucking barn, they were looking at each other.
Yeah, I don't think it's that kind of movie, Mike, but Whatever you want to believe.
I can read it to be that type of movie, trust me.
Okay, that's fine.
I can, with very little effort. If I had the time, I would go watch it again now and make a whole new set of notes that were just a whole new reading of this whole movie.
You can just get a Wattpad and write fan fiction.
I'd make a lot of money. I could be like Colleen Hoover.
Yes,
you have at
there you
least
go.
a dozen readers of your Ravenous fan fiction, I guarantee.
Yeah.
Almost 1 dozen. Not dozens, but almost 1 dozen, yeah.
You know that opening scene where they're all eating the pieces of meat? That represents dicks. That's what it's about.
Listen, like...
Wasn't there an ear? Like a whole ass human ear on like some dish? Is that what that was?
There was definitely like ears and shit plopping down along with the vegetables when he was pouring it up.
Okay.
Almost certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
All I know is watching this, that like, does this get an award for like the least amount of cannibalism in a cannibal movie? Like, I feel like I was disappointed in how much, like you said, Colton, like everything's off screen. So I guess to me, like, I just felt there was no like stakes or terror in it for me, just because like nothing really, you don't see anything happen other than people getting stabbed. Like that's it.
Yeah, and then he comes back and he's like rejuvenated, so you know that he's consumed. It's so funny because I felt the same way, because a couple of weeks ago, or maybe months, I don't know, I have no concept of time anymore. As I probably said on the podcast, I had read an amazing book by Chelsea G. Summers called A Certain Hunger, and it was about serial killer cannibal lady. And it takes the time to build, she does eat numerous people, and it takes the time to like build relationships with each one of them, and every time you go, oh god, is she gonna eat this guy too? And she does, and she talks about exactly how she's gonna like cook certain parts of their body and like cutting it off and like preparing it, and I'm gonna do like some truffle butter and like, you know what I mean? And like it was beautiful in the way that it was written, but like extremely horrifying too, because you really have to think about a person consuming another person as food, you know what I mean? Whereas in this, it's not like they don't harp on it enough that you really don't have to grapple with, like Jill said, like eating another human, like what does it take? It's just like a concept that's nebulous because you don't really get the details of it.
I think we saw more cannibalism in the Neon Demon, actually.
Yes, no, you're right. Oh my god, wow. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
To get stronger, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I mean, just, you know, between kind of what you talked about, Jill, with like some of the, you know, I think lightly used themes there with war and colonization and the gold rush and all that stuff and just different ways of life. And like, I just feel like the vehicle of this movie was like too slim for any of those to like be fleshed out whatsoever. Like I said, I feel like this movie really suffered from whatever drama, you know, was had by the switching of directors. I know one of the issues with the movie was they were super strict on it being 100 minutes long. And apparently there was like 25 minutes cut out of this movie that was all like exposition stuff and character building and kind of world building, like talking about like the war and the effects it had on people and you know, unfortunately this is what happens when these things get like cut to shit. Where I just found like, as much as I was like, oh, that's cool, they're playing with these ideas, like I'd rather them not play with any of those ideas if none of it's gonna fully be explored. Do it justice. Yeah.
That was one of my notes. I was like, this either needs to be 10 minutes shorter and just cut everything out of it that isn't like straight up kind of like galloping that plot forward.
Yeah.
Or it needs to be 25 minutes longer and turn it into like something a little bit more epic.
Yeah.
Because if you gave it that extra exposition, it might feel like more fully fleshed out instead of being like, because I was looking at it going, an extra 25 minutes could kill this movie and make it completely unbearable, or really add to it and really like make me care about it more. But I was also watching and going, if they shaved 10 minutes off and just sort of like did a like 88 minute, you know what I mean? Like, I would also appreciate that. Like, if they just cut all the subtext out of it altogether.
That's true. I found it hard to watch up until they get Calhoun in their little cabin or camp or whatever, and then he starts telling his story. That's when I really start paying attention. But somewhere near the climax where they're fighting, I kind of like lost my attention again. So I think that's where they could have cut off some time.
Yeah, for sure.
The movie really dragged for me as well. Like, I just searched it up, like the runtime when we were talking about it. I easily thought this thing was like 2 hours and 5 minutes or 2 hours and 8 minutes or something. Like, it definitely seemed like an over 2 hour movie to me when it's only like an hour 40. So it's it definitely felt long. And once again, I'm not even like a big Western fan either. So when I'm watching like the expansion of the frontier and all this stuff, I'm like, all right, yeah, I've seen it, but not really my vibe. So once again, it's just another thing that didn't work for me. And like the movie itself kind of also like commits the sins that it's trying to avoid, because it's kind of like in expanding the frontier, you're decimating like the Native American people. But basically this movie has a Native American in it just to give you the Wendigo exposition, and then immediately like kills them. So it's like,
I was upset about that.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, leave the narrative now for most of the movie. Yeah,
it's just like, oh, what is the most realistic way we can get this Wendigo exposition done? It's like, okay, we'll get a Native American person who would have knowledge of this creature, this spirit, this entity. And then it's like, as soon as they've done their job and got the most amount of lines they've had in this movie, you know, they get like 4 minutes of just exposition. It's like, all right, now we'll kill them right away. You know, done.
Yeah.
You know, you've
they did keep Martha though.
Yeah.
She was Native American.
I very much like my one like moment where I was like cheering in this movie was like when they're like, okay, Martha, you guys go now. And I was like, yes, get her the fuck out of here, please. Yes. I don't care about anybody else but her.
She was not going to die.
No,
she knew too much. And actually, one of my favorite parts was that part where the Native American guy is telling the story of the Wendigo. Because I was like, oh, this is going to be a Wendigo movie. That's terrifying. Because I've recently been like, up on the weird parts of TikTok, learning about the Appalachian Mountains and Wendigo and stuff. And I'm terrified, like to the point where I don't even think I should be saying the word Wendigo because they're going to come for me. I'm never, ever going to go to a national park. I'm just terrified. But they didn't make it as scary as it could have been. But I guess I'll have to check out Antlers.
I mean,
or what's a good Wendigo movie
of like what modern Wendigo like creature design and stuff is for sure. But Antlers is pretty dull as well. So it's I don't know. I still feel like they haven't really nailed a Wendigo story or Wendigo brought to screen. Like, I guess I haven't seen that Supernatural episode. It's one of the first or second Supernatural episodes. Apparently, it's about a Wendigo, but I've never seen it. So I've watched some of the old Larry Fessenden movies, and they're not very good. Until Dawn, the video game, is a pretty good Wendigo story, I guess.
It is, and it's also an excellent game.
Love Until Dawn.
That's probably my favorite Wendigo story I've seen. But once again, you play that over the course of probably like 12 hours or something, right?
And it's terrifying. I literally, like, the first time I played it, I had to sit on the floor in front of my TV because I was like, my hands were shaking in my controller. I was like, I gotta sit down and be like grounded on the floor and like have my hands like on my knees. Like,
I was gonna say too, I was thinking with the story, I kind of almost thought where they were doing, this Wendigo story, but it was kind of like, you eat the flesh and then you're kind of, possessed, that kind of thing. I'd almost wondered if it would have worked better in more of like a possession type style movie than a cannibal movie, exactly. Like, I just thought maybe if they used maybe more tropes from like, a possession exorcist type style, that maybe it could work better. That was one of the things I just thought of, like, when I was watching it.
Do you think it would, like, affect the credibility of, like, a Wendigo story, or they just have to scratch out the entire Wendigo-ness of it? Because I like that they have that there with, this time in American history during the Gold Rush.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I have no idea. I have no idea what they needed to do. to make me love this more. So
I think Rowan and I are very much on the same vibe, where it's just like, we were not on the ride of the movie at all, or at least that's how I was.
I don't know what was going on with this ride, but it seemed to have left the station without me.
I want to say that I appreciate the Guy Pearce heyday that this was in, because I quite enjoy him, and I think that he sort of disappeared from our collective radar.
I don't know if I've ever seen anything with Guy. I'm sure I have, but I didn't even know what Guy Pearce looked like until I was like, oh yeah, that's Guy Pearce.
He's great in Memento.
Did you never see Memento? Memento's Memento was like probably my favorite thing he's ever done.
I've never seen Memento, so.
What? It's like one of Nolan's masterpieces.
It's gonna have to be an episode now.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
Add it to the roster.
I'll do it as one of my picks, because Colton says I never pick horror movies anyway, so I might as well keep the tradition going.
Of maybe killing your wife or not killing your
Exactly! See, there we go. You're already justifying it for me. Thank you.
That's so good.
We'll do that after, I don't know, we review like Dumb and Dumber or something.
Fuck you all.
That's so good. I have a couple things to say. First, I like I said, I really want a good Wendigo story, because it's kind of like the Native American like vampire, basically. You know, it's a hunger for human flesh, and it becomes more satiable, and you're feeding on the weaker to become stronger. So I think it's really interesting to vampirism. The other thing I want to talk about was there's this really cool juxtaposition between Christianity and cannibalism. And that kind of goes back to the morality thing. The Native American guy, I don't even know his name, I'm so sorry. He says, white man eats the body of Jesus Christ every Sunday. Mm-hmm. And then while Cahoon is like claiming to be a man of God, when he wakes up, he's like holding the cross while he's talking about all these unspeakable things that he's done.
Mm-hmm. And paints the cross on his forehead.
Yeah. Yes, and the cross on his forehead in blood. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
His character name is George.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that
honestly the only three people whose names I know are
No. Wait a second. They're really going to name them George and Martha?
Yeah.
That is the most
oh my God,
American thing I've ever heard of. And they're going to get that to the Native American characters.
It's like,
shut up.
Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Joseph Running Fox is the actor's name who plays George.
I like the religious stuff as well, but it was kind of, once again, it was one of those avenues that I wish was better explored, like kind of how, hopefully this isn't a spoiler anymore for Midnight Mass, but there was kind of like, I can see a Midnight Mass version with like a Wendigo story where like you're exploring Christianity, you're exploring it, I guess more in like a northern community with Aboriginal people, with the white man settling and all that stuff. I could see like an interesting story there for sure. But once again, this movie mentions that and I go, oh, I like that. That's an interesting wrinkle. And then it doesn't explore it other than, paying it lip service essentially.
Yeah.
And so I think, imagery. Colton, that's going to be your next screenplay, right?
There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna do a rewrite. I'm gonna go and put that in there. Yeah.
Listen, remakes are all the rage, so why not get that bag? Get the fucking bag, Colton. Get it. Yeah. Chase that bag.
Direct-to-video sequel, Ravenous 2.
Thanks, Rowan.
Why do I feel like there probably was some weird VHS sequel?
Ravenous 2, The Search for More Flesh.
Even hungrier.
I love it.
Ravenous 2. I'm starving. Is anyone else starving?
No. Not after that movie. What's wrong
Jill's like, Jill's just like, that literally
dude,
justified every decision about my life that I've ever made.
Yeah. And every time I see a cannibal film or series, I'm like, I made the right choice. And also, I don't want to come off as preachy. I don't care if people eat meat. I just am a picky eater, and I just eat mac and cheese and grilled cheese all day. So it is what it is.
I had the best mac and cheese last night, FYI, just dropping.
Oh, nice. I'm so jelly.
And I just eat people, so I don't want any of our cannibal listeners, to feel bad either. So
yeah.
So are we good to land the plane on this one?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And get into our rating. So if you're new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Colton, this was your pick, so we'll start with you. what would you rate Ravenous?
I think I'm a little harsh on it, but I am going to give it an A. I really didn't enjoy watching it, which is, I feel like, a hot take. But once again, this is the one time I will admit that Mike is right, that my expectations and kind of my expectations of like a Wendigo movie that a lot of people like really laud and hold in high esteem, I think it really did change my perception of what I was going in to watch. Because I mean, once again, I've had this movie downloaded or on my radar for 5 or 6 years, kind of waiting for the right time to see like, okay, what actually is a really good Wendigo story that got, you know, made and got a $12 million budget and whatnot, right? So just going in and seeing like it was very cheesy and campy and goofy is just very much not my vibe at all. Like I gotta really be in like that headspace, you know, to go watch a movie that's like so silly. And once again, I already have an issue kind of discerning if camp is intentional or if it was there right from the beginning with a lot of these sorts of movies. So yeah, it's not something I'd really watch again unless it was like through like almost like a educational lens or like as a learning experience or like what parts to take and what parts to leave, something like that. I didn't really enjoy it that much. So yeah, it would be a nay from me. What about you, Mike?
Well, because I had seen it when I was younger and, you know, watched it a couple times, and like a couple of my close friends that I'd lived with, you know, when we were younger and stuff, really loved it, and we, you know, put it on when we had people over and stuff. I was really excited to rewatch it for the first time in like a decade, and I was really expecting like to get a solid yay at least on this, but I'm just like okay on it now because I feel like maybe I also came into it with like different expectations because I had that rose-colored nostalgia glasses on.
Yeah.
And I saw things in it that I hadn't really picked up on before, like the cannibalism was, you know, like very much supposed to be a metaphor, but also that kind of dragged it down for me because there's a lot of things in it, like you said and everybody else said, that should have been pushed. The cannibalism should have been pushed more. I thought that the opening scene with like essentially the PTSD and like him being like you know, disgraced, that would have been a really good avenue to pursue because that's a really important like pillar of his character. That wasn't pushed. The colonialism metaphor really wasn't pushed. There was critiques of masculinity that they kind of started to go at the end when they were talking about like how like consumption he's like, I have my virility restored. And I thought, you know, that like that was a really interesting word for him to use. And I was like, oh my God, so maybe they're going to push like this like kind of traditional Western masculine thing and maybe they'll critique it, but they didn't. And then I was like, are they going to kiss? Like, where's the homoeroticism? And like a lot of the things that I wanted them to push, they didn't. And like I said, they could have not pushed that and then shaved 10 minutes off of it. And they could have had Guy Pearce and Robert Carlyle kiss. Because I know they wanted to. I could see it in their fucking eyes. I know they wanted to.
I know a great movie for you. Have you ever heard of Brokeback Mountain?
How dare you?
You can watch two men kiss there.
I can watch that. And frankly, they're better looking. But anyway, yeah, so, and Colton, you know, brought up very fairly that it is, you know, essentially camp, but and you know me, I love camp, but the camp elements of this were not over the top enough. Like, it wasn't wacky, gory. It wasn't you know, really, like, if they had really leaned into that, like, slapstick element of it that kind of got dropped in, but then not pushed, I would have been, like, appreciated it in a camp way more, but, like, even the camp element of it was, like, kind of like teased and not pulled out enough. So it's just an okay. Like and it had the trappings to be amazing, and in my mind it was like the fucking banger that is Isolated Outpost becoming under siege either from without or within is such a banger. Like all of John Carpenter's like early movies, you know, that are based on like westerns have that element. Like I just kept thinking like this is trying to be The Thing, but it's not nearly as artful in any way. And I was thinking about the music, and I was like, the music is kind of a banger in a really weird way, but then I was like, I prefer the Thing score, so yeah, this is an okay. I would probably watch it again in a few years, but that's all I got. What about you, Jill? What do you think?
I'm gonna give it an okay, because it didn't knock my socks off, so that's what I say for Slay. But I did enjoy my time watching it. I had a good laugh. I like the middle part of it. But like we were talking about, I think they could have connected the beginning a bit more seamlessly to the rest of the movie, and they could have cut out a chunk of the end or the climax.
Yeah.
Also, I would have really liked to have a really good Wendigo movie. That's like all I can think about.
Yeah.
And the themes of colonialism, I think they could have done a better job with that, and like maybe not let George die
Yeah.
at the beginning. Dicks. But yeah, so I'll give that an okay. How about you, Rowan?
Yeah, I've really been pondering it. I think I'm gonna give it like a really light okay. I feel like I'll want to revisit this maybe within the next year, just to maybe try to pull out of it what, other people seem to love about it. I brought up to a friend of mine that we were reviewing this, and he was like, man, I love that movie. Like, the music's great. It's a lot of fun. And I was just like, what? Like, is this the same movie that I just watched? So, maybe a second viewing. But yeah, this viewing, like, just kind of like I said, like, it wasn't enough cannibal stuff for me. It wasn't, we've all been saying the kind of the same stuff. It wasn't campy enough to be campy fun. And it wasn't serious enough to be like a serious movie. It was just kind of in between. I felt it was confused at what it wanted to be. And it just didn't really execute anything perfectly, which really hurt it in my eyes. And yeah, the music, I still haven't decided if I like it or not. It's weird. It's definitely weird. I'll have to listen to it more and figure that out, I guess. Yeah, so just an okay from me. So we told you what we thought, and we asked what you thought about the movie, and guess what? This section's really short because no one said anything about this movie. So no one wrote us. So we are gonna go directly to the horrific hotline. I don't know. Every time we're going the horrific hotline, I just think about that Pretty Ricky song on the hotline. I need like a remix of that's about the horrific hotline. But yeah, we're gonna head over to the horrific hotline, and I think we got a voicemail about it.
Hi, so this is Niklas once more as always, and I'm so happy that you actually picked one of my favorite little horror movies, Ravenous, which is probably one of those movies you most likely either love or hate, and I totally love it, simply for its darkly comedic approach to all of it. So it feels like the movie is separated into 4 segments, each a little different, and each presenting the horror in a different way. So the first one, it just starts as this adventurous trip into the wilderness and the uncertainty of what to find. And then the movie just promptly turns around and kills off most of the characters in a weird sequence that's basically just so entertaining, and the score is so counterpoint to the scene more than almost anything I've ever seen. And despite this turning point halfway through the movie, it still manages to stay thrilling and interesting as it turns into some sort of almost Agatha Christie-esque chamber play before ending in this absolute madness of a final fight between the 2 main characters. And I guess all this works so brilliantly because technically it just shouldn't. There are just too many contradictory things. The music just being one of the examples, or also the 2 leads. You have Guy Pearce's performance as a stoic and earnest military man, I think was a sergeant or something, while Robert Carlyle just seems like he wants to have as much fun as possible. I think the only part he was better in is Train Spotting, so it's like his second favorite performance of his. And additionally, the sets and the nature scenes just look great, especially the way in which the fort becomes just another, wild or wilderness place over the course of the film. And I think, sadly, overall, the setting and the time is criminally underused for horror movie. The only other movie that comes to mind is Ginger Snaps 3. So if you know any others,
the shout out,
please tell me, because I just think there's so much to do there. you round all that up with some small parts for the likes of Jeremy Davis and David Arquette, and at least I definitely get a sleigh out of this film. I can, however, of course, see how all this could be a big turn off. I guess it depends on one's taste. And, well, doesn't it always? I mean, just remember the mirror incident, which I hated and all of you kind of loved. Yep. Well, one small little thing at the end is that a movie with a story centered around a Native American folklore, the two Native American characters get very little screen time, which is a bit sad. But even that could be interpreted as the settlers or the white being too ignorant of their surroundings and the dangers and the culture and everything, and therefore basically are getting what they have coming for them. But that's just a way to see it if you want to, well, like I want to keep a sleigh definitely for this movie and not nudge it down to a yay. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you for discussing this movie. Again, one of my favorites, and hear from you soon. Okay, very quick, just one small, very little thing, because I totally forgot The Witch, the horror movie, which is also an American settlement just a few years earlier, I think like 150 years earlier or something. Brilliant movie, just didn't want you guys thinking that I forgot this masterpiece.
Yeah, so it's a good thing included The Witch, because you don't want our resident A24 bro Colton to come after you.
That's it.
And that was
I
his first. That was his first episode.
Nicholas. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
First time on the show.
Remember it fondly.
That's a good choice.
I like The Witch far better.
Yeah, The Witch, in my opinion, is far superior. And I never even gave that a sleigh, I don't think. The Witch.
Damn.
Yeah, maybe a hot take, but I thought it was very good. But I guess listen to that episode if you want to know my full thoughts. But I like that Nicholas shouted out Jeremy Davies, which as a Lost fan, I did like seeing him in it. I was like, oh, that's the guy from Lost.
I like the shout out to Ginger Snaps 3, which is also what I was thinking when I was watching this movie.
I've never seen
It's so good. It's
kind
really
of the same
good.
thing, but it's Canadian wilderness during colonial times and werewolves versus Wendigo. But they do get help from an indigenous lady and stuff. So I
actually haven't seen that, but I do agree with Nicholas that this time period is like criminally underused. But I think it's also because it's kind of expensive to make it look right. If you actually want to set everything in that time, even just the costuming alone is expensive, right? So it's probably a reason for it. And then there's also people like Rowan that just hate period pieces. So
I do.
There's that as well.
Like Wonder Woman.
I do hate period.
He hated that 1984.
He didn't like the original Wonder Woman, so he's like impossible to please, honestly.
I know, that's true.
But and like you said, Colton, I think with like something like The Witch that Nicholas talked about, like just The Witch did it so well. Like Robert Eggers had the language down, like everything was like. So that's my thing is like if you're gonna make something in that time period, like. To me, that's the standard now. It has to be as good, which I feel like people won't want to do.
And if you want to leave a voicemail like Nicholas, you can do so by calling 1-902-418-8620, or you can just do what Nicholas does, which he just messages us like a million Instagram voice messages, and then we'll just stitch them together, which works for us as well. You can also send us an email at itsslayspodcast@gmail.com. And if you're not doing so already, make sure to follow us on all of our socials at itsslayspodcast. We're basically everywhere where there's social media, Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, Letterboxd, and Twitter for the time being if it doesn't burn to the ground. Yeah, and Rowan, Rowan, how about you tell the folks about the horrific playlist?
Yeah, so if you want to get your spooky music on, you can go on Spotify and look up the It Slays Podcast Horrific Playlist. Or you can go to our link tree in any of our social media, and there's a link directly to that playlist. We put music from horror movies we've reviewed, or just iconic horror movies and movies we love, and we put music, score, licensed music, whatever, that we love in there. I don't know. Maybe one of these Ravenous songs, I'll just troll people and put it in there. I'll have to decide. But yeah,
if you never put Sweeney Todd in the playlist, and you're gonna put a fucking song from Ravenous.
It's there.
Okay, it's there. Okay, all right.
It's there.
I'll calm down.
The mass update we did before Halloween, everything went up that should be up there. Excellent. So there's lots of music there now.
Is the American Psycho 2 score up there yet?
I think there's.
I did find it on Spotify.
Yeah, I think there's a song or two from there.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
Excellent.
Just put the Imogen Heap on there. That's all I care about.
But yeah, I think the only thing left to do is announce our next episode, and it was my pick. And the next episode is 30 Days of Night. So everyone get your bed head ready, and time to get our Josh Hartnett on. And we have a very special guest coming on that one, a first-time guest. We have Chris.
About time.
Yeah, Chris from Every Horror Movie on Netflix will be joining us. I'm awesome. Sure he thought that we hated him since we've had everyone else from that
Everyone
podcast.
Except for him. I know. Every week I'm like, when are we getting Chris on? Like, literally, it's like...
I know, and poor Chris. We've had everyone, and we've had everyone multiple times on.
Yeah,
and I keep saying it's my fault. We kept saving. Chris is a huge Saw guy, so I always told him, like, when we do a Saw movie, we'll bring you on, but we never pick any Saw movie. So I was like, you know what?
I didn't know that, or I would have picked Saw 2.
Yeah,
obviously.
Chris will enjoy talking about some Josh Hartnett with us. So
good.
We'll love it. So get that into your eyeballs for 2 weeks from now. And I feel we were talking about it earlier. I don't think there's really anything for Now Slaying coming. We're worked to the bone, and there's not really anything. We kind of missed the menu, so...
Yeah, we wanted to do the menu, but it's just Rowan and I's work schedules don't align at all. So
yeah,
there's that.
So we'll try to find something. If not, maybe we'll do the horror movie that looks like Avatar 2. I don't know. It looks like a horror movie to me, just having to sit and watch it. I'm sure it's like 3 hours long.
How dare you?
But yeah, I think that's everything. As always, thanks for all the support. And we will be back in 2 weeks. As always, I am Rowan.
Bye, it's Mike.
I'm Colton.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
See you later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store. Back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
But the prime time gets
Mom with the new fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
We've got to return some videotapes.